Jonesy and Amanda.
Jam Nation.
Well, the Coalition's been in power for 12 years in New South Wales, and in that time we've had big road projects built, we've had tunnels bored, we've had light metro lines up and running. We've also had a pandemic with stress on our community and businesses, lots of industrial action, school infrastructure promise that hasn't happened yet. If they win the election, their plans are to support us through a potential recession, with cost of living becoming unbearable, as we know, cashless pokies, universal free kindy, and hopefully trains that don't break down. Premier Dominic Perrottet, hello.
He's here.
Good morning,
You're
Jonesy
going
Amanda.
all the weeks to come in after that train debacle.
Oh, we're so sick of the word unprecedented, but that's what was happening, wasn't it? An unprecedented glitch.
We've never seen anything like it. And apparently it was a digital software issue that just went down. And as I said yesterday, I'm really sorry to families who were inconvenienced the other day by that, and people couldn't get home and couldn't get to work. But credit to the transport team. They fixed it in an hour and 15 minutes and got it back up and running. But I'm assured it won't ever happen again. It was just a freak event.
I read a story in 1936, thereabouts. Someone said in the government, by 1968, our rail network is going to need a major overhaul. And successive governments, no one did anything about it. So that was 1968, so 55 years ago. I don't know if that's... Yeah. I read this somewhere. So what do we do? Because we've got an old rail infrastructure network, but we've got new technology with old technology. It's hard to...
Well, this technology apparently is only 5 years old. So there's a new system in place they put in 5 years ago, and it was just a digital malfunction in the software, and it went down, and they then couldn't communicate and didn't know where the trains were, so they had to shut everything down.
Yeah.
And the timing as well was terrible, just in the afternoon.
People trying to get home.
But thank goodness they got it fixed in an hour and 15 minutes, because then they were able to get the peak hour trains. It could have been a lot worse.
Do you know if are we better around the world? Because obviously infrastructure around the world is going to fail. But you look at somewhere like Singapore, their train network didn't really go in until the 80s. So that's really a top-notch train system. How do we compare around the world?
Well, I think Metro, which we're building, we've built the Northwest Metro, and we have the City and Southwest coming in. I mean, that is state-of-the-art transport, and that is the future. And I think if you go 10, 20, 30 years forwards, I think we'll have a metro system that will be the best tech anywhere in the world. Driverless metro trains. That's the future, and that's where we're going.
Wow.
You're in an unusual position because the Liberal Party or the Coalition has been in power for 12 years. So when you come in and say, we want to change this and make this better, people say, well, you've had 12 years. Why now? Why isn't it better already? Well, how do you find your place in that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Things are much better today than they were 12 years ago when we came to office. You think of all the hospitals, the schools, the public transport, the metro system. We've really transformed the state. I mean, you look at the construction right across our city. The motorways. I mean, look at all the things we built. The North Connects, West Connects. These projects are changing people's lives. But you've got to keep looking to the future. And my job, and I've been Premier now for around 18 months, is to keep looking to the future. And the sign of any good government is not one that just deals with the issues of today. You've got to set up our state for our children and their children. That's what drives me as Premier, is to always look at new ways of doing things. And whether that's on the announcements we made on gambling reform, whether it's setting, which I think this is the biggest one, I think, for me, has been setting up pre-kindergarten for every child. I think this will be the biggest game changer in children's education in a generation, and I've seen that with my own kids.
And it frees women also to go back to the workforce. Absolutely,
and it's also a cost of living issue as well. People can't afford preschool.
That's right.
But if every single child in New South Wales, which is what I want to achieve, can have 5 days free preschool, I know the impact that's going to have on women's participation in the workforce, but our children's educational outcomes. I think it's an absolute game changer. It's going to make a real difference.
When you became Premier, I'm sure it's not how you imagined it would be, the sudden resignation of Gladys Berejiklian. Is the job what you thought it would be? Because suddenly you were in it. Has it been what you pictured?
In some ways, I mean, it's very different. I was treasurer for 5 years beforehand, and that's very much behind the scenes. And it's a great job because obviously you look across every single area of government and putting the budgets together. You make the investments where you think they're needed, and you can see the benefits of that. But look, I work very closely with Glad, particularly the last 4 years we went through droughts, bushfires, floods, the pandemic, and you've got a real sense of that job and the pressure that you have as Premier, because every day, we had those crisis cabinet meetings, and Glad would do those 8 a.m. press conferences.
And then one day,
and did you think,
Dominic, it's you.
Thank God it's not me doing that.
Oh, well, a lot of the time, you sit back in those periods, because we had great debates in those crisis cabinet meetings, and we always had different perspectives, and ultimately, at the end of the day, the Premier's the one who's responsible. So you're on the front line, and you've got to make the calls, and you're accountable for those calls, and you don't always get them right. But I think in the main, goes back to that question, I think in the main, over the last 12 years, issues do build up. But New South Wales is a much better place today than it was back then. And I'm very proud of the legacy of our government. But ultimately, we've just got to keep moving forward. And I'm driven. You say, what's the job like? Yeah, it's a challenging job. It's difficult. Every day there are new issues that you have to face and you have to deal with. But ultimately, you make the sacrifice to go into politics to make the world a better place and our state a better place, and that's what drives me and my team.
It doesn't help that Chris Minns is so reasonable and a nice guy. You would have been hoping for someone like a Luke Foley or something to be going up against, because that would have been...
Well, I think it's good that you have... people on both sides of politics who are driven to do good things. And what's pleasing to me about this election campaign, I think, compared to the federal election campaign, was so personality-based. I want this campaign to be about policy. People have different ideas. Chris and I agree on some things, we disagree on other things. And ultimately, it's a matter for people to make their mind up about what the two visions are. And they make their judgment. Ultimately, from my perspective, elections are performance appraisals.
Yeah.
And
can you report card marked?
Yeah, and you accept that. And I just think, but from a state's perspective, you look at the jobs growth, you've got the lowest unemployment rate. You want a job in New South Wales, you can get a job. We're building so many things for the future: the motorways, the metros, the schools, and the hospitals for our children and their children. That's what inspires me every day to be in this job.
Well, good on you, Dominic. Good luck.
Thanks, thank you.
Coming up to the election, 24th of March.
25th.
25th of March?
I think.
No, okay, 25th. That was a test. Nothing can possibly go wrong.
No, but you can vote the week before, I think.
Okay, look, see, he's there.
Covering the options, good.
Premier Dominic Perrottet, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.